In order that all sentient beings maintain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. Whatever the virtues of the many fields of knowledge, all are steps on the path of omniscience. May these arise in the clear mirror of intellect. O Manjushri, please accomplish this. Good evening, welcome back. Continue to make our way through this wonderful book on Shamatha Vipassana, translated by Lamas Alan Wallace and Ava Natanya. Tonight we're in the section on the union of Shamatha Vipassana by Tsongkhapa, the amazing Tsongkhapa. My reckoning has it that we are in page 111. All right, we have agreement. Confirmation. So I'm going to start at the first paragraph there. So, with regard to all the statements in Scripture where it says that by meditating without mental engagement, one abandons holding to signs, the true intent is this. So meditating without mental engagement, something that was made famous by Maitripa, Marpa's guru for Mahamudra, one of the main transmitters of Mahamudra into Tibet, made famous this idea of amanaskara meditation, non-mental engagement meditation. So by meditating in that way, one abandons holding to signs. The true intent of that phrase, according to Tsongkhapa, is once you have investigated correctly with analytical wisdom, and not one atom of that upon which you have been focusing, when grasping to things as real any longer appears, then you enter into meditative equipoise on the meaning of this realization. So investigate first with analytical wisdom until the object, phenomena, disappear. Then you enter into meditative equipoise on the meaning of this realization. To support that, he quotes Kamala Shila's stages of meditation. Whatever the mind may be, when you seek it out, you realize it is empty. Whatever state of mind with which you realize, when you thoroughly seek out its essential nature, you will realize it as empty. Realizing in this way, you enter into the yoga without signs. And this is very similar to the stages of Vipassana as mapped out in the Lojong slogans. Analyze the nature of unborn insight. Liberate even is the first sentence. Whatever the mind may be, when you seek it out, you realize that it's empty. Liberate even the antidote, whatever state of mind with which you realize, when you thoroughly seek out its essential nature, you realize it is empty. Rest in the alaya, realizing in that way you enter into the yoga without signs. This teaches that one should enter into signlessness itself precisely after doing a thorough analysis beforehand. Again, what is signlessness? Signlessness is one of the so-called three doors to liberation. Door number one, door number two, door number three. Behind door number one is emptiness, there's nothing. Behind door number two is signlessness, is a washing machine that has no name. It just washes out all signs and characteristics. And then door number 3 is wishlessness, aspirationlessness, expectationlessness. So that's a clock with no battery behind door number 3. And here we have signlessness is not registering the signs of colors, shapes, sounds, smells, thoughts as distinguishable from one another, not registering them as being separate things, as being things. This teaches that one should enter into signlessness itself precisely after doing a thorough analysis beforehand. It shows with extreme clarity that with nothing more than the complete absence of mental engagement, or without analyzing the essential nature of functioning things, in other words, so-called real things, specifically characterized phenomena, not generally characterized phenomena or conceptual objects, it is impossible to enter into total non-conceptuality itself. So one needs to proceed that with analysis, analyzing the essential nature of things. The Randa Mega Sutra states this and accordingly says that if you do not discover the view of suchness by correctly analyzing beforehand presumably referring to before entering into meditation, then it will be impossible to enter into a non-conceptual state with regard to the meaning of suchness. So the progression of the path being identified by Tsongkhapa's analysis leading to non-conceptuality. In the last volume, the third of the stages of meditation, Kamala-shila says those scriptural statements about it being inconceivable and beyond cognition are meant to prevent the false presumption that one could realize the meaning of the profound just by hearing and thinking about it. Just by reading about it, you can know it. No, it doesn't work. Because these profound realities are to be known by each Arya being a noble one who has achieved the path of seeing or above, by each one's own awareness. So this is a translation of this elusive phrase, by individually discriminating wisdom. Here, understood as being the wisdom experienced individually by each Arya. Because these are to be known, let's say, by awareness directly, it is taught that they are inconceivable and so forth by someone else. Interesting interpretation. So when they're said to be inconceivable, it's said that one's own understanding is not conceivable by someone else. It's an interesting way to understand it. Those phrases were stated in order to prevent the inappropriate attitude that comes from holding the meaning of the profound to exist as real. That seems to be the main point, and the description before that is a little bit confusing to me. However, they are not said to stop one from carrying out appropriate investigation using the wisdom of discerning analysis. So those phrases, to use those phrases at the beginning of that paragraph back on 111 of reality or suchness or emptiness being inconceivable beyond cognition, are not said to stop one from carrying out investigation. Back on 112, using the wisdom of discerning analysis. If they were meant to reject that, then these sayings would be in contradiction to reason and to very many other authoritative scriptures. Although such investigation is indeed of the essential nature of conceptuality, it is also of the essential nature of the appropriate method of mental engagement. I guess that means it's correct conceptuality. Therefore, because the thoroughly non-conceptual primordial wisdom will emerge, if you long for such primordial wisdom, then you should rely upon that method. Because the thoroughly non-conceptual primordial wisdom will emerge from that appropriate method of mental engagement that involves investigation and analysis of the essential nature of conceptuality. If you want to achieve that, then you should use that method. All these scriptural statements refute the sayings of those learned monks from China. Oh my God, once again, the bad guys from China, Washang, who lost the debate at Samye to Kamalashila. And they claimed you will never find the view that establishes suchness by relying on scriptures and reasoning. So they were eschewing study, contemplation, analysis, and logic. It is by settling into meditative equipoise without directing your attention to anything at all that you will realize suchness. Interesting to reject that outright without interpreting it as being that you will not find the view by relying on scriptures and reasoning. Only they had an only. It is extremely important for you to understand the ways that this idea is refuted over and over again in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Moreover, these methods, and for those of you not familiar with this, I'm sort of joking about it because the Chinese account is that they won the debate, and they have a different take on the whole substance of their approach. Moreover, these methods of meditation appear in all the early practical instructions. Practical practice instructions for the steps on the path to enlightenment. They appear in Geshe Potawa's Spiritual Nursery. What a cool name for a gardener. As follows. He's a famous Kadampa, Geshe Potawa. I'm going to skip this quote because there's lots of quotes and there's a lot to get through tonight. But he basically lists the logics. And then Lord Atisha sums it up in his text, The Guide to the Two Realities. Who has realized emptiness, Nagarjuna? It was prophesied by the Buddha, the Tathagata, and his disciple Chandrakirti, who both saw the actual nature of reality by means of the lineage of Pith Instructions received from them. You can realize the actual nature of reality. He quotes that because Geshe Potawa refers to Nagarjuna's reasoning in the first full paragraph on 113 above. Therefore, precisely when you meditate, analyze with discernment the one and the many, dependence, and relationship. And that's a handy way of summing up the 4 or 5 reasonings into 3. The one and the many gets at the essential nature of phenomena as being neither one nor many. Dependence undermines the idea that phenomena could be independent, by pointing out that everything was interdependent or dependent. And then relationship refers to various relationships between cause and effect, which never meet because they both can't exist at the same time. Let's see on the bottom of the page on this method of teaching what the Lord Atisha said in his Pith Instructions on the Middle Way, which is the text we looked at earlier in the course, through both on its own as a short text that I circulated by Karl Brunholzl, and then there was a longer commentary in this book on that text. What Lord Atisha said in that text appears to be similar to and accord with the view of Acharya Kamalashila, the author of the stages of meditation. Thus, if you should on 114, thus you should understand all the methods for sustaining insight as explained previously. you should know how to rely upon the 6 preparatory practices. For this, in the traditional scheme of both shamatha and vipassana, there's a list of preparatory practices before one engages in shamatha, which includes things like, for shamatha, it's finding a nice quiet place to practice, gaining the necessary food and clothing that you might need. Atisha adds going to the bathroom. It's the only guy in Buddhist history ever to mention that. And mostly cutting off the engagement with the objects of the senses, the desire, objects of sense desire. And for Vipassana, studying the teachings, studying the Dharma, knowing the logics and reasonings, the way to analyze and investigate. Traditionally, they say through the study under a knowledgeable and experienced teacher, unlike myself. So you should know how to rely upon those 6 preparatory practices, how to carry out the actual session, how to proceed into shamatha, work with the obstacles and the antidotes, progress through the stages, then use that as a basis for vipassana, and apply the same schemes of antidotes as needed for vipassana, and gradually bring the two together. When and if one achieves the culmination of each as described in the next section. And the conclusion to each section, so I'm still on the top of 114, how to proceed between sessions by, in post-meditation, be a child of illusion. Right? It doesn't mean like forgetting you had parents and ignoring their birthdays or Mother and Father's Day, but something specific, and especially how to guard your practice so that it's free of both excitation and laxity. The most important thing is to understand that obstacle or those obstacles. Finally, the 4th part from the main 4-fold division of the presentation of Vipassana, much of which we did not have in this book, but I circulated for last week's reading, a translation by Jeffrey Hopkins. The criteria of whether you have achieved Vipassana through meditation. If you meditate by investigating with the wisdom of discerning analysis until such time as pliancy has arisen in you as described before, it is, and I'm adding the word only, an approximation of Vipassana. So you have to have achieved pliancy. We've seen this many times, and the word pliancy is a translation of the Tibetan Shinjong, which appears in a number of places on the path. It's one of the 4 antidotes to laziness, and it's an aspect of the antidote to not coordinating all the different aspects of meditation. The 5th obstacle. Rob.
Is accommodating obstacles a way of describing pliancy?
I don't think they would be happy with the term accommodating them.
Or maybe not accommodating, but not being disturbed by them.
I think they would say at that point they're not an obstacle. Just to use their sort of logical
Yeah,
reason.
but what I'm saying is like something comes up, like maybe a stream of thought, and
Definitely.
you don't let it get sticky. You just sort of watch it go by, and
Yeah.
in fact, maybe just watch the space around it even more than that.
Yes, that is definitely. I think they would argue that at the stage of actual pliancy, the occurrence of those streams of thoughts does not happen anymore. But on the way there, a very effective way of getting there is not, uh, instead of trying to eliminate thoughts altogether, we just detach ourselves from interest in them, as you're describing. And that indeed is the most skillful way of dealing with, in particular, agitation. Cynthia,
So would you say that, like, what level of shamatha are they saying is required? Are they saying, because I thought pliancy
complete,
was pretty far, like,
complete,
all the way. So,
complete.
so they are saying complete shamatha. So this is a difference of view in that
It's
sense.
not a they, it's a he.
Okay, but yeah, so he's saying you got to have it all the way in order to do proper vipassana, right?
Most traditional teachers up until, the 18th, 19th century will say that.
So it only changed that I mean, basically, I mean, our lineage doesn't say that, right?
When you talk about a lineage, you imply the stream of teachers that goes all the way back to Talopa. So
Well, that's why I'm trying to figure out where does where yeah, how does this is this um
I, I've never seen any one of our lineage holders specify this, except for Pema Carbo in the text that we've gone through a number of times on he has like three texts on Mahamudra, and his identification of one pointedness is indeed the full accomplishment of Shamatha's 9 stages. So reducing that bar has been, as far as I know, a more recent invention.
thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. But once this pliancy has arisen, it is the definitive form of Vipassana. The essential nature of pliancy and the way in which it arises are just as they were described before. So he's there referring to the chapter on shamatha in the book from which this is taken, what the translators are translating as the precise stages of the path of enlightenment. Sankara goes through the 6 paramitas and goes through shamatha in the 5th paramita of meditation of dhyana. Now, if you have achieved shamatha and has not declined in quality, then insofar as the pliancy that follows from shamatha is still present here, this is not merely a matter of having pliancy. You may wonder, what is it then? When you've been practicing analytical meditation, if by its own force this automatically brings on an experience of pliancy, then it will turn into vipassana. So I think he's trying to distinguish between sort of riding on the pliancy of shamatha and based on that pliancy, practicing vipassana on the one hand, saying that's not genuine vipassana pliancy. And on the other hand, genuine vipassana pliancy is pliancy that arises from the practice of analytical meditation, which universally is considered to be vipassana, the way to refer to vipassana, universally until recently. Let's see. It is the same with whether your vipassana focuses upon the qualities of a wide range of phenomena or upon the nature of phenomena as they actually exist. So, the scope of the object of your analytical wisdom is not the deciding point, it's the pliancy that arises. And he's referring to a couple of the 4 types of objects that are identified in Samdhinirmochana Sutra as the objects for shamatha vipassana, the range of phenomena and the nature of phenomena. As it says in the Samdhinirmochana Sutra, O Bhagawan, what do you call it when a bodhisattva internally brings to mind again and again as an object of samadhi, an image of phenomena about which one has undertaken thorough consideration, so long as one has not yet gained pliancy of body and mind. So this question follows a series of questions in that 8th chapter of the Samdhinirmochana Sutra, where Maitreya is asking the Buddha about shamatha vipassana. And we learn that in vipassana we focus on images that arise from our shamatha samadhi. So he's saying if you bring to mind those images over and over again, but have not yet attained pliancy, and the Buddha is very clear, says no, this is not vipassana. You must call it an orientation that approximates vipassana and is concomitant with it. Not quite sure what this means. Concomitant. It is similar to it. Radhakara Shanti's Pith Instructions on Transcended Wisdom, which is the last text of the main text on meditation from the Indian Buddhist tradition, that has not yet been translated into English fully. Thus, once you have achieved pliancy of body and mind and shamatha and you remain in it, you should engage in discerning analysis with intense conviction on the meaning of those phenomena you have been considering thoroughly as images that are the objects of internally directed samadhi. So this little section is about pliancy, but we have this interesting issue of being mixed in, or topic being mixed in this section, which is that Vipassana meditates upon conceptual images. So it's a conceptual practice. And shamatha, in contrast, is said to be primarily a non-conceptual meditation process. However, there's many texts that explain that while they call shamatha non-conceptual, it actually still has conceptuality. It's just a matter of degree. It's far more subtly conceptual than vipassana, because until one has achieved non-conceptual meditative capability, one cannot meditate non-conceptual. So shamatha, therefore, is necessarily actually a conceptual practice. And then I think that other reason I mentioned recently is that specifically characterized phenomena are momentary. They're impermanent. They're radically impermanent. And for a meditation to be continuous, you need a continuous object, which is a conceptual object. So similar to the way Trungpa Rinpoche talks about, we're meditating on the psychosomatic body. We meditate on our experience of phenomena, as opposed to the actual sense input, sensory consciousness. Let's see. From this text, once again, thus once you have achieved pliancy of body and mind, the shamatha you remain in, you should engage in discerning analysis with intense conviction and on the meaning of those phenomena you have been considering thoroughly as images that are the objects of internally directed samadhi. Internally directed samadhi is not like saying, oh, you should meditate on the inside of your body. It's not saying that. It's saying it's not directed towards external objects. It's directed towards mental objects, which are necessarily internal. As long as pliancy of body and mind have not arisen, this is a mental engagement that approximates vipassana. Once they have arisen, it is vipassana. If it can automatically lead to pliancy, and furthermore, insofar as it is able to lead to a single-pointed state of mind, the discerning analysis leads to shamatha by force of its own analytical meditation. This is the sublime quality of having attained shamatha previously. if it can automatically lead to pliancy, and furthermore, insofar as it is able to lead to a single point state of mind, the discerning analysis. So discerning analysis of Vipassana can actually lead to shamatha by the force of its own analytical meditation. It leads to a stability of experience, not understanding, but like using the triad of understanding, experience, and realization. Understanding is like intellectually understanding. Experience is experiencing sort of non-dual meditative state, or experiencing suchness or emptiness through the analytical meditation. That can then lead to shamatha. Therefore, when someone who has properly achieved shamatha practices analytical meditation, it amplifies the shamatha in an extraordinary manner. So the Vipassana then sort of hypercharges your shamatha in an interesting way. So you should never hold a position that if I practice the analytical meditation of the discerning analysis, then the stillness of my meditation will deteriorate. It might, but it doesn't have to. And ideally it shouldn't when you do the discerning analysis properly. And I think he's subtly referring to the distinction between the pandita and the kusala meditation that comes up over and over again in the tradition, including the Trungpa and so forth. Here is the major division on how to unite the pair of shamatha vipassana if you have not attained each of the two shamatha vipassana according to the criteria of achievement as explained for each of those two respectively, i.e. pliancy. Then you will not have the cost of forcing them together as a pair. So that's the very traditional point of view, that you really need to achieve full shamatha and full vipassana in order to bring together shamatha and vipassana. And this is not the view that has been presented to us. And it's Cynthia was asking us, like, when did that change? I don't know exactly when that changed. Is it it seems to be something around the influence of Mahamudra and Dzogchen practices on the practice of shamatha and vipassana. And the other there are some other factors involved in Mahamudra and Dzogchen that presumably act as sort of supercharging shamatha and vipassana in a way similar to pliancy, but without having achieved pliancy, such as devotion in particular, but potentially also bliss. Rob.
So I'm guessing that's why Nalanda Bodhi is very strong on guru yoga at the top of that practice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Guru Yoga is what traditionally in Mahamudra and Dzogchen sort of helps you make that transition from a sort of Sutrayana Shamatha Vipassana into a Mahamudra or Vajrayana or Dzogchen Shamatha Vipassana. It creates that moisture.
And also that sort of touching base with with the very personal relationship one has with the guru.
Devotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, essential quality. So we've seen this many times in the text that we use in the practice sessions, where these practice texts that I've been sharing almost all repeat over and over again. Start with Guru Yoga. Begin your session with Guru Yoga, recollecting the Guru in some form. Now we do, a short version of that in terms of the lineage chants. But traditionally one would do Guru Yoga, and as Rob is pointing out, that Nalanda Bodhi does that. And also there's a tradition that Trungpa Rinpoche began at Genpo Abbey, the 3-year retreat, of the Mahamudra section of that. During that section, the only other practice one does, in addition to Mahamudra, Shamatha, Vipassana, is Guru Yoga, Dharmasagara practice in particular, which is the Guru Yoga to Trungpa Rinpoche by Khyentse Rinpoche. This is definitely necessary for you to achieve each of the two in order to have a pair to unite. Now, since you can achieve the union of the pair from the time that you first achieve Vipassana, the way to do so is as follows. By the power of having practiced analytical meditation on the basis of the shamatha you gained previously, then, as explained previously in the section on shamatha, you achieve a type of attention that engages of its own accord without the manifest action of mental formations. So there's 4 stages of attention, the placement of attention on the object in shamatha. The first one is forceful placement of attention, forceful engagement. The second one is sporadic engagement, where you're sort of with the object and then you lose the object, you're with it. And the third one is continuous engagement with the object, where you're actually able to stay there continuously. You place your mind on an object and it stays there. And then the fourth one is spontaneous. There's no effort involved. It's just you have an intention and your attention remains on the object. You have an intention and then the attention remains on the object.
So that phrase, I'm sorry, so that phrase, without the manifest action of mental formation, so the manifest action part, is that referring to that last stage you were just talking about of spontaneous? Or when I was reading this, that particular phrase, I wanted to understand what manifest action actually means.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Asanga repeats it in the quote below, and I was going to talk about it there
Oh,
because
okay.
I didn't notice it here, but it's great. So let's see. Does he explain it? No, he pretty much says the same thing. So I'm pretty sure what this means is the 4th skandha. And I've been studying the book Glimpses of Abhidharma by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche recently, so I gave some talks on it and going to be giving some other talks on it. And he says that in there. He says in there that meditation, we disconnect from the 4th skandha. We connect with form, feeling, perception, and consciousness, but we disconnect. That the key to genuine meditation of sort of breaking the continuity of the sense of self is by disconnecting the 4th skandha. He also says that the 4th skandha is where actual thoughts happen. And that consciousness is not really thoughts. Consciousness is like this cloudy, background cushion from within which thoughts emerge.
So it sounds like that's sort of aligning consciousness with the Alaya Vijnana kind of, and aligning the thought process more with the 7th consciousness.
Definitely.
Yeah. Which is consistent with other things, I guess, that we've read.
Yeah.
Okay, so manifest action is just the.
He says
I understood
the 4th skandha.
Skandha. So this is just the process of the sort of process of churning out mental formations is this manifest action sort of thing. Is that the idea?
Yes, that's what the scars do. They provide the sort of energy for the ongoingness of the holding of the whole skandha process, and that you can short circuit, according to Trungpa Rinpoche, that skandha process. And he presents the skandhas as a developmental experience as opposed to a sort of simultaneous experience. Traditional Abhidharma presents the skandhas as happening, as arising all simultaneously. And Trungpa Rinpoche famously presents them as one leading to the other. And at each moment there's like the development of the skandha, the whole skandhas of the sense of self come into being, and then there's a gap where they dissolve, and in the next moment they're created again. The fourth skandha is what keeps that engine going, and meditation sort of puts a cog in that wheel.
So one last question. You said you were giving talks on glimpses of Abhidharma, which in the past, when I've asked you why you don't teach that, you always were like, no, 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 no. So when and where are you doing that?
It's the most ridiculously complicated book you've ever seen.
I love that book.
Rinpoche starts off presenting form as consciousness, the first skandha.
I know it's a crazy book, but it also has incredible treasures in it. And some
It
of my,
does. It has some of the best meditation instruction in that book of any of his books. You know, the Profound Treasury has huge sections on meditation that are very organized, you know, but this is like just great stuff on meditation in there.
yeah.
Obviously in the meditation chapter, but throughout. So yeah, I'm going to be teaching it at a program called the Profound Treasury Retreat.
Oh, up at the main one?
Yeah.
Oh my.
The main one in Maine. Anyone else going this year? Chris, that's right. All right.
Well, if I had known this, I might have actually thought about signing up for it. I've
Yeah.
because no, for years I asked you, why don't we do this book? And you were always like,
I can share the source book with you if you're interested. And then I gave, there's this a program that a number of Trungpa Rinpoche students have been doing with Dzongtsar Rinpoche's community. They led Dachans over in India at his place, his center in Bir, and then some of his other centers in India. And they developed like a study program for these people because they had no study background, and then people who were not doing Dachan really wanted to do the study program, so they expanded it and beefed it up. And I gave a couple of talks to that crowd on the, which was sort of crazy because that's a very beginning crowd, and I was like, why are you having them read glimpses of Abhidharma?
there's a lot of great stuff in there. It really is. I mean, I think it's
not for beginners though.
Oh yeah, that's
so confusing for a beginner. They were all extremely confused. After the first talk, I got like a zillion. I got 10 pages from the coordinator saying, you know, can we talk about this and lay the groundwork for this? And anyway. If you can achieve this, then it will go on to be the union of the pair. Nothing like a union of a pear and an apple. As it says in Asanga Shravaka Bhumi. Now, suppose someone asks, just how are Shamatha and Vipassana united or engaged equally as a pair? Why is it called a path of entry into the union of a pair? It frustrates me that this book nobody has translated nor has plans to translate. It is such a crucial book for meditation. It is said that through the 9 stages of mental stillness, you will achieve the 9th stage attentional balance, and there you thoroughly achieve samadhi. On that basis, you will make tremendous efforts at higher wisdom by thoroughly distinguishing phenomena. At that point, the mind will begin to engage of its own accord and without any effort in the path of thoroughly distinguishing phenomena. Because the proper path of shamatha, such as this, lacks the manifest action of mental formation. The Vipassana will be totally pure, will be thoroughly trained, will follow after shamatha, and will be imbued with a meditative experience of bliss. That sounds pretty good. It is in this way that the two of shamatha and Vipassana are united and engaged equally, and this is called the path of entry into the union of the pair of shamatha and Vipassana. Kamalashila says at a certain point, because you are freed from both excitation and laxity, your mind will rest evenly in meditative equipoise, engage of its own accord. Thus your mind will become extremely clear with regard to suchness, and at that time you can relax your effort, settling into a state of equanimity. You should know that at this point you have attained the path of the union of the pair of shamatha vipassana. So everybody's repeating the same thing, basically. You got Asanga and the Shravakabhumi in the 4th century, Kamalashila in the 8th century, and Tsongkhapa in the 14th century-ish. According to these statements, this comes about once you have crossed the threshold of achieving the definitive form of vipassana, i.e., as with pliancy, again from Ratnakar Shanti's text. After you have generated vipassana, you will focus on a conceptual image. And regarding that very state of mind, when with the stream of its mental engagement, which continues in an unbroken continuum without interruption, it experiences both. What is both? So I think the translators added after you have generated vipassana. I think that should be shamatha. But
Well, I think. Wait a second. This was another one that I think I had made a note about a question for this, but I may have sorted it out after I reread it a few times. The
it is called the path of the union of the pair of shamatha vipassana, shamatha and vipassana.
It's in the next section.
Both should be both shamatha and vipassana.
Yeah, because it's in the next
both shamatha.
They talk about the experiencing both
right.
non-conceptual.
But at the beginning, it should be after you have generated shamatha. And then the last sentence is shamatha vipassana are the pair. The union means being imbued with or engaging in their object while being mutually bound to one another. So adding Radhakar Shanti to the list of Asanga, Kamalashila, Tsongkhapa. Here, without interruption, means that you do not have to settle your mind into non-conceptuality after halting a period of analytical meditation, but rather that the analytical meditation itself ushers you into non-conceptuality. So that's the way that Tsongkhapa explains the distinction. He's saying that in some traditions, i.e. the Kagyu Mahamudra-ish tradition, we would say you halt your analytical meditation and then you shift into non-conceptual meditation. And he's saying the analytical meditation will usher you directly into the non-conceptual experience. Experiences both means that your mind experiences both. The shamatha here explains the both again. That the shamatha that focuses upon a non-conceptual image, as I described earlier, and the vipassana that focuses upon a conceptual image with the stream refers to the fact that the analytical vipassana and the shamatha that rests at the end of analysis do not occur at exactly the same time, but rather during the period of the shamatha that is ushered in directly by the power of analysis. You are engaging concomitantly in both. So shamatha leading to vipassana, vipassana leading to shamatha. The supercharged shamatha. You are engaging concomitantly in both the vipassana that thoroughly investigates the phenomena upon which it focuses just as they actually exist or not exist, and the shamatha that rests stably in single-pointed concentration upon those phenomena just as they actually exist. So this is, I understand this as a description of, like, as you go through the 3 stages of prajna, hearing, contemplating, and then meditating. The contemplating is the investigative, discursive, investigative analysis. I said investigative, really analytical. analysis, that doesn't make sense. Analysis. And then the meditation is vipassana that leads to a deepening of shamatha. Shamatha upon suchness. And so I think that when they talk about the 3 stages of shamatha being with discrete support, with non-discrete support, and then without support. Kongtrul actually describes the 3rd one as resting in the nature, and that requires the vipassana. One like circles back into shamatha, that 3rd stage of shamatha. Let's see. When you reach a point like this, shamatha and vipassana merge or engaged equally. This is required for one to be able to attain the realizations born from meditation. Therefore, when you analyze with discernment the meaning of identitylessness from within a state that does not destroy the quality of a non-conceptuality, that has a stable aspect of stillness, like a fish darting here and there through motionless water. Wow. Let's do that one again. Therefore, when you analyze with discernment the meaning of identitylessness from within a state that does not destroy the quality of non-conceptuality, so from within a state of vipassana that does not destroy the shamatha of non-conceptual stillness, which is like a large body of water that has small fish darting about, and the water is so still that the tiny fish don't cause any ripples in the water. This gathers the 2 in a way that is permissible. This gathers the 2, meaning presumably shamatha and vipassana, in a way that permissible is a little bit odd. It's more like that is genuine, that is authentic. However, apart from positing this as an approximation of shamatha and vipassana, it is not the meaning of the union of the pair of actual shamatha and actual vipassana. So he's saying this is still an approximation if you have the fish darting about, I guess. As for how to unite the pair of shamatha and vipassana this way, you should learn as it comes down from the authentic and reliable treatises, but you should not put your trust in explanations drawn from false superimpositions that are alternative to these treatises, i.e. written by Chinese teachers named Huashang. You should learn the extensive logical examination of the steps of the path to enlightenment, the scriptural passages that elicit knowledge, and the expanded explanation of how to meditate. All in my longer book on the steps of the path, little pitch, marketing pitch, which I've described all in my larger book. It's available on Amazon from your local bookseller. Cynthia.
Regarding what, yes, it is funny that regarding what you just described in terms of the 3 stages. No, well, actually, the hearing, contemplating, meditating one, I think.
Yeah.
And so I just wondered, in terms of, is there a difference in, like with Tsongkhapa, would they say that going into the 3rd one, the meditation, you start with some degree of active vipassana, what I'm going to call active, like, some kind of applying, discerning. It seems like they've been saying that you carry some of the analytic process into that 3rd stage. Is that different than what other traditions might say, where at that point you drop the analysis? Is there a difference in that? You know
Well,
what I mean?
when we went through Tashi Namgyal's Moonbeams of Mahamudra, he has a pointed response to this. And maybe you can help me remember next week we could look at that.
Okay.
But he very specifically says that you don't keep continuing the analysis once you have sort of achieved the result of the analysis.
Right, and that's basically why I was asking, is that my understanding is that this is a slight difference, because here in the, it seems like Tsongkhapa is constantly sort of reminding that you still have to start, like you can't go full Huashang into the meditation. You still have to start with some process of discerning analysis. You know,
Yeah, and I think it's actually more than start. I think it's like he says the analysis like sort of continues in the midst of the shamatha. It's a little bit slippery exactly what he's describing, honestly.
right. I mean, it seems like in past, and in fact, in past courses when we talked about it, it's like it seems like they never really let go of it. But
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Rob.
Yeah, like in that video you sent, she
Hmm.
mentions the way I interpreted it and the way I sort of dumbed it down for myself was, oh, the analysis now during shamatha is like a speed reading version. You
Mm.
sort of get it. You sort of make the
Mm.
you do the work before you get on the cushion, but then when you're on the cushion in shamatha, you just sort of flash on that work, um, and you do like a 2 second, might not even be discursive, or it might just be like I said before, an outline header,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
definitely.
you stack those. You have like three outline headers stacked, and then there's all of a sudden sort of a, a kind of a like, oh yeah, this logic makes sense feeling, and it's the feeling you rest in, not the
Hmm.
words.
Does she say that? I haven't made it through the
Oh,
whole
she she
talk yet.
she, she didn't say that, but this is now my interpretation of it.
Yes, that's the
Kind of like a
comprehension.
recollection that you're,
Well, there's a visceral like letting go of the that feeling of engaging with an object has like a, a non-analytical feeling to it of like I'm hooked in with something, and when that is not there, that just like that exercise, visualize an apple in front of you and then take the apple away, or other, you think your keys are right there and you look and they're not. There's that gap, that feeling. Oh,
Also, just a normal aha moment, or
yeah,
or any kind of sensual experience actually is in its own way non-conceptual. The taste of something, but when you get it and you can flash on that and then rest on that flash.
that's great. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So hopefully we'll make it through this book and we can do a class at the end on the chapter from the Samdhina Motion Sutra on meditation and look at that again. But we need to forge ahead to do that. So on the next, no, I'm going to skip this text of Garland of Supreme Medicinal Nectar, which is a Q&A between Tsongkhapa and Vajrapani. It's pretty amazing. But we're going to skip ahead to the Kagyu tradition as presented by Karma Chakme and Mimir Dorje. So on page 145, the words of Avalokiteshvara, Shamatha Vipassana in the Mahamudra tradition of Mimir Dorje and Karma Chakme. So just to go through this lead in quickly, it's 3 pages, but has some great stuff. Karma Chakme was given the name Wangjuk Sung, fiercely powerful speech, at his birth in 1613, and was immersed in the Dharma from early childhood, as his father, who was a Nyingma practitioner, descended from the great Dharma kings of Tibet, which would be Trisong Detsen, Rinpoche, and Songtsen Gampo. Not in that order, though. Guided his early education and granted him oral transmissions, minor empowerments, and training in ritual activities. What a dad, huh? Instead of going fishing and like watching sports, Wow. The young Karmachakma experienced numerous visions of Padmasambhava, Vajravari, and other deities. At the age of 11, he met his root guru, Pravashara, something like that, from whom he received major empowerments and transmissions through very diligent practice, including meditating seated on a stool throughout the night, all night long on a stool without falling off. He became adept in Vajrayana, experiencing pure visions and receiving siddhis from every deity he practiced. That's pretty neat. At the age of 19, he took refuge in the Upasaka vows, which are the introductory vows of a monk, but are more actually the lay person vows, Upasaka. Later the same year, received a great number of Vajrayana transmissions and empowerments in the Kagyu tradition from the second Gyalwa Karma Rakshi. What do you make of that? Does your book say Rakshi? That's pretty funny. Everyone else I've ever seen calls him Pakshi with a P, as in the Sadhana Mahamudra. But could be just a typo. Hopefully it isn't a pejorative. But anyway, during that time, he took the novice monastic vows, going from a upasaka to a monastic during the day, and that same evening took the Gelong or full monastic ordination, which is very rare. You usually have to be a novice for a certain period of time, but anyway, they bent the rules for him, this extraordinary being, and he received the name Karmachakma. He joined the Tupten Yinling monastery of the Zermang Kagyu tradition. So that's our tradition. Trungpa Rinpoche, Zermang Kagyu, they generally, translators these days spell it with a Z now. And Zermang Kagyu is like 12 little offshoots, and the main one is Nam Gyaltse, this big, huge monastery. That's the head monastery of the Zermang Kagyu. Not whatever. He joined the Gap, not Rinpoche's monastery, which was Tutsi Till. It was not actually the main one. He joined the Chupten, where he practiced as an impeccable monk, becoming a master of the 5 great scriptures of Indian Mahayana Buddhism, is greatly skilled in logic. That was the most interesting to me part of the whole thing, which is that, let's say he's born in 1613. He's now like, what, 20, maybe 25 years old, so maybe like 1630. By 1630, there's already this tradition of there being the study of the 5 great texts, which forms the core curriculum of the Rime Shedra curriculum, which is what we're part of, that focuses on 5 Indian books. And it's unclear when that tradition began and who began it. But it's interesting to see it. Certainly, for them to have mentioned it in this way, it certainly was a known tradition. By that time, that since the Kagyus were one of the later schools to adopt the Shedra system, it must have been prevalent in other schools for quite some time. Anyway, at the age of 37, he entered strict retreat, focused on the deity Avalokiteshvara and the practice of Mahamudra. Interestingly, Avalokiteshvara is the main focus of one of Trungpa Rinpoche's 3 cycles of teachings that he discovered in Tibet, and figures prominently in many cycles of Dzogchen teachings. He remained in this intensive solitary retreat for 13 years, occasionally granting empowerments and commentaries to disciples through an opening in the wall of his retreat hut. They don't say like window, so it must have been somewhat different than what we would consider a window. But so much for the 3-year retreat. He spent 13 of them. During this time, many deities came to visit him in pure visions, granting countless blessings. He recognized and enthroned the great Territon, Namcha Mingyu Dorje. Namcha means sky dharma. I'm not sure what Mingyu, I think, is changeless. Vajra, sky dharma, changeless Vajra, who is the progenitor of the Payo tradition of the Nyingma, one of the 6 schools of the Nyingma. And it's actually the earliest of the 6 schools in terms of being established as a formal sort of school system. So he recognized and thrones it Mingyu Dorje when he's 10 years old, and they together go on to share a mutual teacher-student relationship between the two of them, each reverting to the other. So Mingyu Dorje is 10 years old. Since he's born at 45, he's 10 years old at 55. And at that point, Karma Chakme would be 42 years old, something like that. He can still do math. Karma Chakme served as the scribe for Mingyu Dorje's revelation of 13 volumes of Sky Dharma, cycle of teachings which became widely practiced in both Karmakagya and Nyingma traditions, especially of the Katok Payo monasteries. Yes, I guess he's the progenitor of both those, Katok and Payo, down to the present day. So they don't say, so when he was 10 years old, he enthroned him, but they didn't say when he started receiving that terama. But it was not that long afterwards. He was quite young, Mingyu Dorje, when he received it. And down to the present day, widely practiced. 2 chapters of Karma Chakme's own extensive commentary on this enormous body of teachings is translated below. Mingyu Dorje revealed the Namcha when he received his mind treasures, which he received his mind treasures in pure visions, while still a boy of 11 or 12. Okay, so 1 or 2 years after being recognized and enthroned, often accompanied by states of trance. Karma Chakme cared for the boy and also made possible the preservation of the myriad empowerments and transmissions that Mingyu Dorje received from Samantabhadra, Amitabha, Avalokiteshvara, and Padmasambhava by writing them down as Mingyu Dorje received them and spoke them presumably. So he goes into states of trance, and instead of being sent to a mental hospital, turns out to be receiving some of the most amazing time in the history of Tibetan Buddhism. It's clear from Karma Chakme.
Sorry, so according to the dates here, Mingyu Dorje only lived to be 22.
Yes, died very young. Thank you, good point. Yeah, what a shame. Wow, 22. So he got it around 11 or 12 and lived only another 10 years. Wow. It's clear from Karma Chakme's commentary to the Namcha that this explanation was originally shared in the context of a multi-day teaching with numerous disciples present, some more senior than others, that is, the stewards who had received the teaching previously. This commentary is specifically with respect to the cycle on the Avalokiteshvara body mandala within the Namcha revelations. And so the body mandala means generally the way to visualize the deity in its full manifestation. And it is an oral lineage. And Trungpa Rinpoche uses this term body mandala, I believe, when he is referring to the visualization of Dorje Trollo Karma Pakshi as having these 3 figures at his 3 main centers, Dusam Kempa, Mingyu Dorje, and Rangjung Dorje, at the head, throat, and heart, respectively. And it is an oral lineage, namely the teachings ideally needed to be heard directly from a lineage holder, yet tradition preserves this as a text which allows suitable excerpts to be translated and thus understood and practiced by many more people than might ever have the fortune to receive the oral lineage in person. Karma Chakme had especially close connection to Avalokiteshvara, also granted public guidance for those yearning to be reborn in the Buddha field of Amitabha called Sukhavati. Karma Chakme was 65 years old in 1678, which is 11 years after Mingyur Dorje has passed, the Buddha Amitabha appeared to him in a pure vision, expressing discontent that he had not yet come. Come where? Come where? Come to the Pure Land. He was still alive. Why he was still alive? What a weird experience that must have been. Amitabha was like,
Where are you?
like, look, taps his watch, you know. The Mahasiddha manifested illness that same day, manifested illness, and soon after it passed away, displaying many auspicious signs. It gives the URL to a web page that has more information on that. And in the 2 chapters that follow, where Mingyur Dorje's revealed root text is represented in bold type, we see a foundational presentation on the paths of shamatha vipassana as they are held in common across the traditions of the Sutra Mahayana, Mahamudra, and Dzogchen. We witness Karma Chakma's inspiring erudition as he cites myriad sutras and tantras to illustrate and support each point, as well as his direct instructions from experience, which can guide us straight to the heart of meditative stability and realization of emptiness if we take each page presented here as personal instruction for practice, which is a phrase that the translators are sort of quoting a phrase by Atisha, that Atisha found a lot of sectarianism when he came in 1042, and he said, if we understand all the different teachings as precepts for practice at different stages of the path, then we avoid the great downfall of sectarianism or disparaging the Dharma. So first we have the cultivation of shamatha from the great commentary to Mingyur Dorje's Buddhahood in the Palm of Your Hand. Common title, Buddhahood in the Palm of Your Hand. It's a book by that title by the regent of Trungpa Rinpoche, Osil Tenzin. And there's also many other books that have this title in the Tibetan tradition. Chapter 15. Then, for the presentation on the instructions on the main topic, there are the instructions on cutting through, which are held in common by shamatha vipassana, Mahamudra, and Dzogchen. So very clear identification of the first of the 2 actual practical aspects of Dzogchen teachings, called Trekcha, cutting through, to primordial purity, being equated with shamatha vipassana, or more specifically shamatha, in the Mahayana tradition and Mahamudra and Dzogchen. And there are the uncommon instructions on the direct crossing over, which is the second aspect of actual Dzogchen practice, called Togyo. Moreover, within the first of these, there are the 3 topics of shamatha vipassana and the union of these 2. So he's saying that within Trekcha, there's shamatha vipassana and union. First, there's the presentation of shamatha. Without shamatha, the mental afflictions are not suppressed. The fine qualities of extrasensory perception do not arise, and the wisdom of emptiness is not realized. Those 3 achievements as the product of shamatha are mentioned all over. First, shamatha must be cultivated. As stated by Shantideva, as someone whose mind is distracted dwells between the fangs of the mental afflictions. Atisha, if shamatha is not achieved, so Bodhipata Pradipa is the name of his text. It's the lamp on the path to enlightenment, the first formal Lamrim text of the Tibetan tradition, which Tsongkhapa's Great Stages is basically a commentary on. If shamatha does not achieve, the extrasensory perception does not occur. Accordingly, without the power of extrasensory perception, the needs of sentient beings cannot be accomplished. And this is this interesting side of Buddhism that we don't often talk about or hear about, is that a bodhisattva is supposed to have special powers in order to benefit beings. And in order to do that, you have to have accomplished shamatha. If you achieve shamatha in the first absorption state, first yana, then you have these special powers. But without that, you don't have these powers, and you can't actually really accomplish the benefit of beings, the needs of beings. Nagarjuna, in his letter to a friend, Suhruleka, states, without dhyana there's no wisdom. And he uses the term dhyana, which is the term also used for the four absorption states, as well as the fifth paramita. As for the immeasurable benefits of shamatha, craving for mundane activities is averted. Many avenues of samadhi arise in one's mind stream, so it unleashes like this flood of different types of samadhis. This whole idea that there's differences in samadhis. We normally think of samadhi as like this one thing, but in the Mahayanas, it's like thousands of different samadhis. Mental afflictions are calmed. Compassion arises. One realizes the meaning of emptiness. That's the most interesting part. In shamatha, one realizes the meaning of emptiness. I've seen this in a number of places here and there, including Trungpa Rinpoche in the Profound Treasury. At one point, talks about shamatha as and he affiliates it with understanding emptiness, which is wisdom. One realized the meaning of emptiness, which is wisdom, and so on. So the division between the two blurs a little. The Prajnaparamita Samchaya Gata states, and it's a summary of the 8,000 lines of verse. Due to dhyana, one disparagingly rejects the attractions of the desire realm, manifestly accomplishes sound reasoning, extrasensory perception, and samadhi. Shantideva, once you know that Vipassana perfectly imbued with shamatha completely destroys the mental afflictions. The Buddha in a sutra, the Song of the Dharma Sutra, whatever, I think. The mind settled and meditative equipoise sees reality as it is. Due to seeing reality as is, the mind of the Bodhisattva dwells in great compassion for sentient beings. So shamatha equipoise leads to Vipassana, seeing emptiness, and that unleashes compassion. And Mahayana Sutra Alamkarpa Maitreya, in this very dhyana, all beings are brought to the three kinds of enlightenment, Shravaka, Prajeka, Buddha, Bodhisattva, or Buddha. Moreover, it said that if one cultivates shamatha alone, achieves the fourth dhyana, and so on, one can display an uncanny, it's a funny word, an uncanny variety of tainted, paranormal abilities. Tainted, because one hasn't achieved the path of seeing yet. One still believes in a self, tainted by the belief in a self, because one still has not achieved Vipassana and the union, and the result is the experience or understanding or realization of emptiness. He quotes from the Sadasahasrika Prajnaparamita Sutra in 8,000 lines. Let's see. This is just an interesting list of these special powers, in case you're wondering what's in store for you, like a little bit of a marketing pitch for you guys who might not be that interested in shamatha. Here we go. First, you achieve the first dhyana and abide there, and then the second, and then the third, and then the fourth. Then one settles in the meditative equipoise in that fourth and experiences numerous times the paranormal abilities. One causes even his greater to quake. One transforms from many to one. From one to many. One transforms from many to one. This literally means transforming your body into many bodies and transforming those many bodies back into one. One experiences becoming invisible and invisible, passing through walls, passing through fences, and through mountains. One moves about with a body that is unimpeded as one would through space. One moves through space with one's legs crossed like a feathered bird. So you're in Vajra postures, flying through space. Isn't that wild? One moves up through the earth and down into the earth as one would through water. One walks upon water without sinking as one would on land. One billows forth smoke and blazes with light like a bonfire, emitting smoke and fire. Pretty wild. The standard stuff in early Buddhism. This is not the Tibetan, hyper Tibetanism influence. This is in the earliest teachings, texts of the Buddha. The so-called Pali Sutras record these. Moreover, those endowed with such great paranormal abilities, with such great mind, and with such great power, stroke the sun and moon with their hands. How do you like that, touching the sun and the moon? Now, those of us who have studied Vajrayana Tantra know that those can also be interpreted as referring to aspects of the inner subtle body, but I'm not sure if that's what they are referring to here. And their bodies wield dominion as far as the world of Brahma. So you become the lord of the form realm. One of them, at least. Those endowed with such physical zeal use these types of paranormal abilities to go wherever the Bhagavan Buddhas in incalculable, innumerable, immeasurable realms of the 10 directions of the world may reside. So you can go anywhere in the universe. You may nurture disciples, you may teach the Dharma, and they venerate those Bhagavan Buddhas by offering bountiful garments, alms, bedding, medicine for the ill, and essential items. Moreover, those many garments, alms, bedding, medicines for the ill and essential items are not exhausted until one becomes manifestly perfected, but in supreme perfect enlightenment. It's a little bit of an odd thing there to like imply that they do become exhausted when you become a Buddha, by saying they do not are not exhausted until one becomes. It implies that then they do become exhausted. I think it's more accurate to say they are not exhausted. They are not exhausted even when one or even, I think it's just more like they are not exhausted and one becomes Buddha or something like that. The meaning of this in further passages is that if one has cultivated flawless samadhi alone, shamatha alone, such signs that one has achieved the fourth dhyana will occur. They are tainted paranormal abilities which also occur for non-Buddhists, bunpos, and so forth. If the achievement of such shamatha is imbued with the vipassana, then there are untainted paranormal abilities, because this belief in itself has been cut through. But the basis of all the paranormal abilities and sublime qualities of the Mahasiddhas of India and Tibet is shamatha. Furthermore, if one does not cultivate jhana, even though one may strive for other roots of virtue, one will not be fit to be included within the class of the Muni's teachings. Some quotes from some sutras I'll skip over until, let's see, the remainder of this page, and then on the next page, let's skip to 154. Actually, on 153, in between the quotes, instead of just saying this is from the next sutra, he says, for the cultivation of such shamatha, one must abandon entertainment and distractions, of course. Then on 154, now, so after the rhinoceros, in the quote there, therefore now for these few days you should avoid all distractions, including invitations, business, prejudice, conversations, Zoom meetings, and texts and emails. Not only that, dispense with all physical, verbal, and mental distractions, including the religious practices of prostration, circumambulation, and chanting. So, for a few days, for these few days, be implied that like they're going to practice for a few days and achieve shamatha, which is, I don't know, a little bit funny. But basically, you should not do other religious practices such as like nundro, prostrations, and things like that. Just do shamatha, because other practices churn up the mind. Isn't that interesting? It's like really just like focus. And a long quote from Shantideva here to support all that, and then on 155, in the sort of in the middle, he says, well then, how is shamatha to be cultivated? There is shamatha with a sign and without a sign. For both of these, the posture is, of course, very important. Let's go through these quotes. They're sort of interesting. When you're sitting, are very interesting. When you're sitting upright in the Vajrasana, Vajrapasana, on a very soft cushion, so, you know, there's two ways that can be taken. Is, you know, they're soft, it's like mushy, like a cushion that has no support, or just like the material covering it is soft. I'm going to go for the second type.
Now that one stopped my mind too. I thought, no, that's no good,
So much for these stiff gomdens, right? I think it's
I
this,
always tell people don't use a pillow because, like a bed pillow or whatever, it just won't work. So
yeah,
that's what I thought when I read this.
I'm pretty sure it's the cover. There's like references to like including the Buddha when he achieves enlightenment, he gets some kusha grass and makes an ice soft, you know. So it's not sticking straws in your butt, It doesn't not hurting you. Cast your gaze down over the tip of the nose, and we'll have more about that with mindful, free-flowing respiration. Touch the tip of the tongue against the palate. Slightly draw the navel inward. It's interesting to see that specified. Instead of jutting your abdomen forward, you bring your abdomen in a little bit and rest your mind conscientiously. That the term that used for the third aspect of shamatha. There's mindfulness, awareness, and conscientiousness. Interesting. Rest your mind conscientiously. In another tantra, the Vajramala, similar to what was given above just there in the Padmajala Tantra, the practitioner should sit upon a comfortable cushion and direct both eyes over the tip of the nose. The nose should just be in view, so we have the directionality of the gaze is depending on your nose, but it's sort of slanted downward. If you have a ski slope nose, you might debate that, but I don't think any of them did. Let the shoulders be even and touch the tongue to the palate. Let the teeth and lips be comfortable, and the exhalation and inhalation be relaxed. By incrementally releasing effort, the exhalation and inhalation will flow naturally as you sit properly in the Bodhisattva yana. That's interesting reference to that type of posture.
Bodhisattvasana, it says.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Not the yana in the Bodhisattvasana. Thank you. Here's the meaning. A vital point is that with the physical posture as a contributing factor, realizations arise in the mind. Thus, due to the legs being either end of Vajrasana or the Bodhisattvasana, the downward clearing vital energy is directed into the central channel. Envy is calm in what is not troubled by interference. So here we have the Vajrayana take on the posture, which, we certainly don't explain that when we give instruction to beginners. You sit it straight so that the subtle body, the energies of the subtle body, the lung, the winds, and the prana and the bindus, so they can flow evenly. And bringing the legs in a cross position brings the energies down into the bottom tip of the central channel. So lo and behold, that's what we've all been doing.
So one question about that, I wondered if because when I first read this, not sometime earlier in a different course,
Yeah.
the same sort of explanation, the one about the meditation mudra, which we typically don't do. I mean,
Yes.
most of us put hands on the thighs, right?
Yep.
And so I remember asking, I think it was the Lopan that was teaching this. I was like, well, if we don't do that, are we not getting the effect of the water vital energy being directed properly?
Yeah.
Uh, he did not have an answer. But I wondered if have you ever heard anything about that?
Uh, I was thinking about that. I was preparing for this and reading it, and the only thing I seem to have come across is that by placing your hands on your thighs, you're doing something to the wind energies that go into the legs. It didn't say that's comparable, but I'm imagining that it's considered to be comparable, and therefore it's presented as a valid alternative.
And,
But yeah, it's certainly a big pitch for the cosmic mudra.
yes, exactly.
Let's see, due to the hands being in the mudra meditation, meditative equipoise, for a finger widths below the navel, the water vital energy is directed into the central channel, and hatred is calmed. Due to the spine being straight like an arrow and the shoulders being spread like the wings of a vulture, the earth vital energy is directed in the central channel, and delusion is calmed by tucking the chin slightly down toward the chest. The fire vital energy is directed in the central channel, and attachment is calm. I would say that's more important than, like, every once in a while you see people who like habitually lean their heads back, and they have a really hard time in meditation. I've seen it where I'm like, okay, put your chin down, and they go, it's just like this tiny bit, and they still have their head back. I'm like, no, down. So I think that's probably more important. But the eyes partially open, direct the gaze to a point 4 finger widths below the tip of the nose. So there we have it. Boom. Where do you put the gaze? 4 finger widths, not 4 feet. 4 finger widths. Finger widths are done, as Cynthia's demonstrating and Chris is demonstrating. It's done like this way, not like, it's not like that. So that's like right here, the old image when you're a kid of like the yogi being cross-eyed by fixating on the tip of your nose. So that's a bit of a mystery. Like how can you possibly meditate with your gaze that close? And by touching the tongue to the upper palate, the vital energy of the air is directed into the central channel. Pride is calm. Consciousness becomes clear. In that way, if you correctly adopt the 7 points of the posture, the vital energies are directed into the central channel, resulting in a natural arising of realizations. Rob?
So some Zen practices, or a lot of Zen practices, will stare at a white wall,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
similar.
that in a way is even less than 4 inches or 4 finger widths, because in a sense,
Oh,
in a way, there's no distance at all anymore. It's just whiteness.
oh, yeah, you lose the ability to focus at some point. But yeah, yeah, we've been doing it in some of the Rime Shadra meditation sessions. We've been practicing wall gazing. It's quite a powerful practice.
Yeah, it is just, I mean, it's disconcerting at first. There used to be a sort of Zen sitting down in my neighborhood here. And so just because it was in the neighborhood, I figured, hey, why not? Let's go. But it was definitely sitting facing the wall. It wasn't too close, but still it's hard to get used to that.
Yeah, yeah. I was at Profound Treasury in the year right after COVID, and like there were all these people sitting outside on the balcony there because we didn't have to wear our masks out there, and there was no space to sit other than in front of the wall by the time I got there, since I identify as late. And I sat right in front of the wall, and it was quite a powerful experience.
Yeah, with mudra space awareness practices,
Yes,
one of those has a wall gazing uh, practice
one
too.
of the rooms, yeah, the Mudra rooms, space awareness rooms.
Buddha one goes right into, I think it's the Buddha one, at least it's one of the ones that you are directed to the,
Yeah,
Floor?
I think it was the white one, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
which is put up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the body leans to the right, there first occurs a sense of clarity, but thereafter anger arises, and you are afflicted by the masculine demonic forces such as partivas. If you lean to the left, there first occurs a sense of joy, but thereafter attachment arises, and you are afflicted by female demonic forces. If you lean forward, there first occurs a sense of non-conceptuality, but thereafter delusion arises, you are afflicted by shamapatis. The mind becomes unhappy and the vital energy of the heart becomes disturbed. If the body leans backward, there first occurs a sense of vacuity, but thereafter obstacles occur, including the arising of pride, strong conceptualization, scattering, excitation. The body becomes bluish, and then the vital fluids seep out and so forth. Wow, gotta be careful. Make sure you're sitting straight up. Be sure not to err with respect to the posture. Cultivation of shamatha with a sign. So let's just read the root text, I guess, and pause. Whether you place an enlightened form, a stick, or a pebble in front of you, and circle it with the consciousness that has generated a deity. Uh, I think that's another option. I think that's like, whether you place an enlightened form externally, like of the Buddha is one, a stick is two, a pebble is three. I think a deity visualized as four, but I don't know, that's a very confusing sentence. Any thoughts?
I think they say more
It's
on
just,
this further on too, because I was puzzled by that, but I think they they talk about it again the next page, uh, and do talk again about this consciousness encircling. But yeah, I think it may be an or.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there's a whole
They
bunch of
talk,
things.
yeah.
I thought it was
Okay.
referring to Guru Yoga, honestly.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, we'll come to his explanation of it. Do your best to rest your mind in that sphere, resting in the center. Momentary movements and awareness of them both are the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. This was an interesting scheme. I've never seen this in a presentation of shaman. Place the form of Shakyamuni or any golden image of deity or a lotus or else a stick or a pebble or the like in front of you, in any case generated as the divine Shakyamuni, Vajrasattva, Samatha, Vajra, Vajradhara, whichever is suitable, and then let your consciousness encircle it. Then do your best to rest your mind within its sphere. Rest your mind within its sphere. The mind is sphere? I guess so.
Sphere of the day.
Meaning, I guess, encircling it. Remaining in the center is stillness. Momentary dispersions are movements. Mental awareness of them both is awareness. Stillness is the Dharmakaya. Awareness is the Sambhogakaya. And movement is the Nirmanakaya. What a neat scheme. Let's see. So in the footnote, the bold indented text is from your door's guidance to great perfection. Called put it in the palm of your hand from the cycle on the body mandala in the profound oral hearing lineage of the sky dharma and mind treasure. Okay. Then to cultivate shamatha with a sign, the Samadhi Raja Sutra states that if you meditate on Bhagavan, rather, Shakyamuni in front of you, and the Samadhi Raja, the king of Samadhi Sutra, is famous for describing a meditation on the form of the Buddha. And that's repeated in many, many texts. In front of you, there are measurable benefits. And it's repeated because of this, because it like generates a huge amount of merit to visualize the body of the Buddha and recollect the different attributes of the body of the Buddha. And it says to hold in mind each of the 32 signs and 80 symbols of the Buddha's body. Buddha's body is said to be marked with 32,989 indications of it being a magnificent form. The same sutra states, when a bodhisattva sustains his or her attention on the object of the magnificent protector of the world, whose enlightened body is like the color of gold, that is called meditative equipoise. The meaning of this is stated in the verse of Vajra words. So let's just go through almost the end of this page, and then we'll close. Whether you place an enlightened form, a stick or a pebble in front of you, and circle it with the consciousness that has generated a deity, do your best to rest your mind in that sphere. Do your best. Its commentary, taught by the great compassion of Avalokiteshvara himself, states. So in other words, the root text has a statement by Mingyur Dorje and then a commentary by Avalokiteshvara, it seems, who says, which we already went through. Here's the meaning. Place in front of you or before a group of people in light representation so it can be seen. If you do not have one, use a pebble, a stick, or a flower. For just a few people, place the pebble in front of each one. There are 4 techniques for sustaining the attention. Sustaining the attention on Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, the Dharmakaya, as well as sustaining the attention without any reference. So we'll go through those details next next week. Comments, last thoughts, questions, suggestions, jokes?
I haven't finished the video yet either, but so far I'm completely enthralled.
Yeah, I watched. Yeah, I got all the way through it. It's intense, but
Cool,
it's good.
cool. That was really nice of them to give us access to it. She's
Yeah,
very,
her voice is beautiful.
yes,
Her whole demeanor is amazing.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. She's really an amazing person. Cool. I'm glad to hear that it was interesting, helpful. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. And if you lost the links or whatever, let me know and I'll send it again.
Yeah, thanks for getting that for us.
So these two wind turbines are shooting the breeze one day. And one says to the other, "Hey, what type of music do you like?" And the other says, "Well, I'm a huge metal fan."
What's the story? Has she been in there all the whole time?
No, no, no. She was in and out.
Yuki, come on. Come
Yeah,
on.
this merit, all attain emotions may defeat the enemy wrong, doing it from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden son of the great east, may the lotus garden of the victim's wisdom bloom, may the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled, may all beings enjoy profound glory. Thank you, everyone. Great to see you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Tell everybody that joke. It's a great joke. Take care. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.